Hello there, sports gamers. Welcome back into the channel. I'm Brandon Satterwhite. So last week, I put out a video on the channel called What Happened to Road to the Show, and it was basically looking at Road to the Show as a mode, starting all the way back when it first premiered back in MLB '07, the show, and looking at all the changes that have been made to it throughout the years and how it got to where it is now, which in my eyes and the eyes of many others is not in a very good place. So first off, thank you to everyone that watched that video, that shared it, that commented. It was really fun getting to read all of y'all's comments, all of your thoughts on where Road to the Show is right now. By far the most views anything I've ever done for Sports Gamers Online has ever gotten. So thank you to everyone that checked that out. If you haven't already, make sure to go watch that. I'll leave a link to it in the description. But because I got so much feedback and so many people, telling me their thoughts on what Road to the Show is right now and what it should be, what they need to change, I thought I would do a video like this where I go through where the mode is right now and what my ideas would be for how to fix it and make it better. And so basically, we're just going to go through a quick little playthrough of Road to the Show, and through different parts of it, we're just going to talk about, how I would do things differently. I have some notes here that I've written down. I've got whole bunch of notes on what I would change in different parts of the mode in terms of like character creation, gameplay, off the field stuff, progression, and all of that. So we're just gonna, pretty casual video like this. So just gonna kind of go through it step by step and see how I would do different things differently. So yeah, let's get into it.
Sports Gamers Online is the #1 source for the sports gamer.
All right, so starting a brand new Road to the Show here. And we're just going to use the regular rosters, start. We're going to make a brand new ball player. And the first note I have for fixing Road to the Show, in all caps, I have remove all Diamond Dynasty integration, which for the most part has already happened. In 21, we saw, Diamond Dynasty missions where you could only complete those by taking your Road to the Show player and playing with them in a completely different mode in order to progress your player. That was dumb. They got rid of it. But now there's still a little bit of integration with like the equipments and the perks and all that. I would get rid of all of that except for the equipment. I would leave equipment how it is for now. And the reason I say that is because the equipment system in MLB The Show right now has basically been the same since at least MLB 16. I wasn't able to really see about older games, but I know at least in 16, the equipment system in Road to the Show in that game is exactly the same as it is now. You had the exact same 15 equipment slots, and you could equip different stuff. You had the same bronze, silver, gold, and diamond tier equipment. You had very similar types of boosts in that. So I would keep that in just because I do kind of like that a little bit. And we'll talk about that more later on. But one thing I would add to the equipment is a transmog system. So if you don't know what that is, basically where you can take the stats from one piece of equipment that you own and combine it with the appearance of a different piece of equipment that you own. So I would add some sort of transmog system, because a lot of times, like, I'll see myself using a piece of equipment only because it has good stats, but I hate the way it looks. Instead, I would like to use, one that I actually like how it looks. But here in 23, you get to pick now if you want to be a position player, two-way player, or a pitcher. So I would start things out a little bit differently. I would add a little bit more of a story to Road to the Show, but I wouldn't do like NBA 2K does, where like the story is like incredibly detailed, where like you have all these different characters around you, and it's telling this very linear story. I would leave it a little bit more open. And so here's how I would start it. I would start with you, the player you create. So first you would create your ball player the same way you do now. You have all the customization, you get to shape the face and the hair and all that stuff. And you start out, you're in an interview with a MLB Network media member, like Robert Flores or something like that. And he asks you, who are some players that you patterned your game after? And then it cuts to a menu, and you pick one former player, one current player, And then you pick someone that's considered your mentor, and that could be either a current or a former player. And based on those 3 players that you pick, it determines your position options, your initial stats, and your archetype or build type, basically. So, like, say I picked Derek Jeter as my former player, Aaron Judge as my current player, and my mentor as Ken Griffey Jr. So, first off, my position options would be outfield, because that's where Griffey and Judge play, or shortstop like Jeter. So those would be my options. My initial stats would be sort of a combination, an amalgamation, if you will, of those 3 players. Of course, we wouldn't be, like 99 overall to start off with. We'd start off low. We start off like in, the 60 to 65 range probably to start things out. In my What Happened to Road to the Show video, I showed that in 21, and even now, like, you can start off as a very high overall player if you have the right loadouts, equipment, and perks unlocked already. I don't like that. I want you to start off low and have to, work your way up on every single playthrough. Speaking of positions, one thing I've always wanted in Road to the Show, and I hate that it's never been an option, even since MLB 07, you can't pick relief pitcher or designated hitter as position options. I would add that. That would be near the top of my list of things to add. I've always wanted to be a bullpen pitcher, not a closer, not a starter, a reliever. Come in the 6th, 7th, 8th innings, to get out of a jam like that. It makes no sense that you've never been able to pick that before. And also DH, we've got like David Ortiz, Shohei, all these great designated hitters. If you want to be a designated hitter, if you want to just hit, you should be able to choose that. It's your fantasy, it's your playthrough. You should get to do what you want to do. And also, those 3 options would choose if you were a position player, a two-way player, or a pitcher. Because if you pick 3 position players for your 3 players, you'll be a position player. If you pick all 3 pitchers, you'll be a pitcher. If you pick a mix of position players and pitchers, you will get to start off as a two-way player, with the option later on to stop being a two-way player or to change the style of two-way player that you are, like we saw in other games that have had the two-way player option. Also, I would want multiple options for each position, so I wouldn't want there to be just one first baseman legend or one third baseman current player. I would want at least a few options of legends and current players at each position, and I would also want several options for mentors, because the mentor part will be pretty big in my vision for Road to the Show moving forward, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. And also, I talked about archetype, who you pick would be your archetype. So if you pick 3 players that are all very similar, then you would start off with, very specialized stats. So say you picked Jim Thome, David Ortiz, and Edgar Martinez. Okay, then you're going to have stats that are very specialized into basically power hitting. And it would be higher than if you had picked, some other power hitters, because you're very focused on just being power hitting with those selections. But say you picked, some different players. Say you pick like a Jeter, a Judge, and a Ken Griffey Jr. Well, then you're going to have more well-rounded stats because, Jeter, he was a shortstop, even though you might not think he was great defensively. He did have to make some defensive plays, being an everyday shortstop. Judge and Griffey, both really good fielding. All of them very good contact hitting. Judge and Griffey, both really good power. Jeter and Griffey, both very good base runners. So you would have more well-rounded stats as well. But the mentor option would be very important. And I don't think every player that you could select for the first 2 players would also be an option for mentor, because you would need to have the mentor play a more vital part in the story. So story-wise, basically, the player that you select as your mentor is basically like a family friend that's helping you get ready for an MLB workout, which is where the story begins. And you have regular conversations with the mentor all throughout your playthrough, and each mentor has unique conversations with them for each mentor choice. So that encourages, you to replay it, to try out the different mentors to see these unique conversation options. So you create your player, and you get through the interview where you're picking your archetype and all that stuff and your mentor and whatnot. Then you go have a conversation with your mentor in a cutscene with dialogue options. And it would be pretty similar to something like this, although I think in my vision, you would have the player model for your mentor sort of there with you, actually talking to you instead of it being over the phone. But you're having this conversation with them as you're about to go out onto the field for an MLB workout. And your mentor asks you, is there any particular team you're hoping sends a scout to your workout? And stuff like that. And then you go out and you see, in the background as you're trotting out, you see, scouts wearing different gear for different MLB teams. And you go through a couple of different drills, sort of like how the Bowman Scout Day worked in, I believe it was like 16, 17, 18, around in there. And then your performance in the workout basically determines your draft stock. And then afterwards, you have a conversation with the scout for the team that you said in the conversation with your mentor that you were hoping would be there. And if you said there wasn't a specific team you were wanting to be there, then it would just be whichever team has a need at the position that you're playing at. And that scout would basically ask you, a bunch of different questions ranging from like MLB trivia, testing your baseball IQ, and basically just what you would think of being part of their organization. I remember NBA 2K, I think it was like 2K12, 2K13, 2K14, something on the PS3. You would start out, you would play like a prospect showcase game, and then afterward you would have like these different meetings with representatives from different NBA teams, and they would ask you a couple of questions about, what you would think about playing for them and stuff like that. And I always really liked that. I thought that was always super cool. I always loved that. I think that should be a part of this as well. So after that, you then go to the MLB draft, and I would like to actually see Rob Manfred get like scanned into the game and have him record lines where he's announcing you being picked in the draft. We have Adam Silver in NBA 2K. Let's get Rob Manfred into MLB The Show. So like instead of like this little cutscene playing, I would like it to look like the actual MLB draft and have Manfred there at the podium, call your name and you walk up and you get a jersey or whatever and like that. Then once that's done, you would then have another conversation with your mentor where he explains to you the signing bonus system. So the signing bonus system for MLB draft picks got put in to franchise mode in MLB The Show 23. So it's in the game. So I would love to see that come over to Road to the Show where, he kind of, your mentor tells you, okay, you got drafted here. Here's probably what you should expect when you go in there to negotiate with them. But then you go and negotiate with the team yourself. You don't have your mentor there, so you get to decide for yourself how much money you ask for and what you're willing to accept. And you negotiate with the organization that drafted you, and you can choose to refuse their offer and go to college for a year and enter the draft again next year. And in that case, you'll basically go through the workout again. You'll go through another interview with a scout and whatnot. And if you choose to go to college, like in the previous MLB The Shows that gave you that offer, you would get training points that you could spend in between the first workout and the second workout to make yourself better before the next one. So you could perform better, maybe get drafted a little higher, maybe demand a little better signing bonus. So basically, once that's done, you sign with a team. Then instead of going straight to the minor leagues, I would go to spring training. I like how the older games gave you a taste of playing with the big leaguers. I like how you got to play a little bit of spring training. I enjoyed that a lot. And so you have goals in that first spring training, and based on that, it decides where you go, if you go to AA, AAA, or if you get to start off in MLB right away, which, it would be very hard to meet all of those goals, but it would be possible. And so I think that would be pretty cool. And so that would basically end the character creation phase, which is what we've done so far here right now. And that's usually the part that Road to the Show is always updating. It's always, just that first section of getting to your team. And then after that, there's really hasn't been a whole lot of change. But I think that would be a good setup for, one, a nice story about, your mentor helping you and getting to the league and all of this, and, going through the workout, going through the draft process and all that. And then also set us up nicely for some of the other changes that we're about to talk about. Now let's talk about the biggest issue in Road to the Show at the moment, and that is the progression system. It's, it's the loadouts, which are now called skill sets, it's the perks, and it's the equipment. I hate this system. I said it over and over in my What Happened to Road to the Show video. I do not like this. Instead of, how it is here, where all of your attributes start at 30, your skill set takes them up some, and then you have perks and equipment to make up the rest, and then there's a little bit that can be added through gameplay, but not a whole lot. I would do, based on the 3 players you picked, that's your initial ratings. That's, the type of player, that's your archetype. That's, where you're going to start off at. All right. Then in that first contract that you're negotiating for your signing bonus and whatnot, you're also negotiating the base amount of training points and money that you're going to receive after you play each game. Training points and money are only in Road to the Show in this scenario. They cannot be purchased either with stubs or real world money, so you have to actually earn them by playing the game. So this isn't, some pay to win mode. This isn't, a bunch of microtransaction stuff. No, this is just for Road to the Show. Now, you can get extra training points based on your performance in the game. So, like how in MLB 16 and 17 and even before then, you would play, and based on, however you played, you would get so many training points, and then you can spend training points to upgrade your ratings. And also, the only other thing I have in all caps in my notes here, other than removing the Diamond Dynasty integration, no attribute caps. Every attribute you have can be increased all the way to 99. Now, we'll talk about, past 99 in a minute, because, there are some ratings in the game that go beyond 99. But every single attribute you have, you can raise it all the way up to 99 using your training points. Also, I would still have perks be a thing in Road to the Show. I would take it back to the MLB 16 and 17 version of it. And I know I'm referencing those games a lot, but I really do feel like that was where Road to the Show was at its peak, at least for me. But I would take it back to that perk system where those perks did feel very powerful, but you had to increase attributes up to a certain point in order to unlock them. I would instead still have those prerequisites for certain attributes. So you have to, increase your attributes up to a certain rating in order to unlock them. But also to unlock them, you have to spend a large amount of training points. So that would be something you would be saving up your training points for a while in order to purchase something like that. And they would be, sort of like the perks that we saw in 16 and 17. Like, I remember one I would always try to get would be the one where every field played with the elevation of Coors Field, because I thought that was always so much fun, and I could hit home runs real easy with it. Something like that, perks like that actually feel incredibly powerful, because you're going to spend a lot of time trying to unlock those. Any ratings beyond 99, that is where the equipment would come into play. So then the equipment boost could get you from 99 up to that 125 for like contact, power, and then for your per nines for pitching and whatnot. And then the equipment, you would have it unlocked with, through Diamond Dynasty as well, but you could also unlock it through either using the money you earn playing games. You could purchase them in Road to the Show, and if you did it that way, they would be exclusive to that playthrough of Road to the Show, because you're not spending real money, you're spending the money you earn from Road to the Show. So you don't have to let the player keep it even if they delete that save file, because they haven't paid real money for it. They've paid, the fake money, the money that's only ever existed in Road to the Show. But then you could also unlock it through sponsorship deals, which is something we're going to talk about in a moment. But that's another thing I'd like to add, where sponsorship deals could unlock certain equipment for you. And then the last part of progression is throughout the season, you would have training drills, and your performance in those drills would give you attribute boosts for a set period of time, say like the next 3 to 5 games, probably. Let's just kind of recap that. So the archetype, the players that you choose to pattern your game after, determines your archetype. That gives you your initial ratings. Then you can boost your ratings all the way up to 99 by using training points. You get training points by negotiating for them in your contract that you'll receive them after every game, and then also based off your performance in the game itself. Then you will also spend training points to unlock very powerful perks once you increase certain attributes to the thresholds that you need in order to unlock those perks. And then for increasing your attributes beyond 99, You will do that with equipment that you will either unlock from Diamond Dynasty or sponsorship deals or the money that you earn through your contract. So already we have created a new way of creating our character in a new story that is still very open-ended and giving the player lots of meaningful choice. And we are putting their progression back in the hands of the player, back in how they negotiate their deals and in how they perform on the field. And I think that's a lot more straightforward and a lot easier to understand for players than, okay, so my skill set, and then I also have these perks, and then the equipment, and, the gameplay. With how it is now, there's too many, things contributing to your progression. With this new system, it's just, okay, here's your contract and then your performance, and that's basically it. A little bit of stuff from equipment that you'll get from off the field stuff, but mostly it's just what a player would actually have, which is their performance and getting better. Now let's talk about the actual gameplay. So this to me would be the hardest part to fix Road to the Show, because on the field, the gameplay of 23 feels incredibly similar to the gameplay of MLB 07, and not like the actual gameplay, like the physics and all of that. I'm not saying that, but it feels like when I'm playing a shortstop, fielding a ground ball and throwing to first feels almost exactly the same as it did all the way back in 07. And that's difficult to really change, because how do you make one baseball game feel drastically different from another baseball game? I mean, it's baseball. It's going to feel like baseball. And I think SDS is already kind of onto something here with the fielding moments that we saw this last week in the Jeter storyline feature premiere. So I'm recording this just a couple of days after that feature premiere. And I feel like the fielding moments, the mechanic we saw there, could be the first step to fixing gameplay in Road to the Show, as adding that new fielding option. So if you didn't see it, basically there was a moment where Jeter, had to field a ground ball, and then he was going to turn and throw it to first, and you had to press a sequence of buttons in a certain amount of time in order to make that throw. And so I think that could be a new fielding option to add a little bit more complexity to parts of Road to the Show. If you're on a higher difficulty, then you maybe need more button presses in a shorter amount of time and stuff like that. I would also add more goals to Road to the Show gameplay. So that way there's always something that you're working towards. So you could have goals for a single game or for a series or stuff like that. And if you meet them, then maybe you get, you meet incentives in your contract. So you get a bonus of money, you get extra training points, or maybe you earn rewards from sponsorship deals if you do certain things. So I would always have some sort of goal, and maybe multiple goals for you to be working towards in your actual gameplay. Maybe there's on the field goals you need to reach in order to get called up from AA to AAA to the big leagues. Goals you need in order to increase your reputation around the league. So I would introduce the reputation system where, you start off as, just a role player or a bench player, and you need to meet certain goals to become, a starter, an everyday player, and then, to become a star, a superstar, an all-star, face the league, Hall of Famer, all that. And say you have to reach Hall of Famer reputation in order to go into the Hall of Fame when you retire. So always something to be working towards, always, certain goals for you to try to be accomplishing on the field, I think is another big part of making the on-field gameplay more exciting. And now for the last part, and this is off the field stuff. And this is where Road to the Show has lagged behind every other career mode so bad for so long. I mean, NBA 2K's had this stuff for years, and now even Madden NFL with the Superstar mode, they have some of this stuff. So the first thing off the field I would add is sponsorships. So I think that would be awesome. So you could have equipment brands, which are already in the game. You have all of these different pieces of equipment, all with their brand and all that. So that I think would be pretty easy to implement. And so we'll get into the equipment more in a moment. You could have food and drink brands. So I know in NBA 2K, they have Gatorade, they have Ruffles, they have all those sponsorships you can earn. So I think that would be cool. An MLB The Show sponsorship where you get to be on the cover, you get to choose, what sort of pose you get. And if you get on the cover of MLB The Show, then I would have a live action cutscene where it's like a feature premiere for the game where, the SDS team is announcing you as the cover athlete. I think that would be so cool to get to see. Let's go back to the equipment one, because that to me would be the biggest one. And so I would say you would be equipment exclusivity deals, and you'd have two types, either for a single equipment slot. So like, say, Louisville Slugger could sign a sponsorship deal with me where they are my exclusive bat provider. So I can only equip Louisville Slugger bats. But I get a discount when purchasing them with the money that I earn in Road to the Show, and the bonuses that equipment would give me would be slightly higher, maybe 1 or 2 points higher, depending on the rarity of it. And so or I could have an exclusive equipment provider for all of my equipment slots. So say Nike or Under Armour wants to sign me to an exclusive deal where I only wear Nike gear in all 15 of my equipment slots. So, and that would be for a longer period of time. The boost and the discount would have to be a little bit bigger to, get me all of my stuff. But yeah, so that would be the two sort of deals that you could sign. You would have to unlock those as you go through your Road to the Show playthrough. You would have to increase your reputation to certain, thresh marks in order to unlock certain deals. And I say the sponsorship deals, they give you, certain amount of cash and a certain amount of training points for each game. They would also have like certain goals, like say, Nike says we'll give you a $500 bonus or 1,000 training point bonus if you're an all-star or if you make the playoffs or stuff like that. And they would be for a set amount of time. So maybe I sign a deal with Louisville Slugger for 1 season, and then I sign a Nike deal for 3 seasons, stuff like that, But yeah, I think that would be a really cool thing to add. Because, athletes, sign a ton of sponsorship deals. That's a big thing for athletes to do, and I think that would be a really cool system to add. And then the second thing off the field is I would bring back the interactions menu from older MLB The Show games. I would call it something different so it doesn't feel like we're just bringing back something that we used to have, because it would be different. I would have new interactions in there, but basically that's what it would be. It would be a menu that you go to, and you would, have these different options. And you wouldn't have them all immediately, but you would unlock, they would pop up, as you go on. And once they pop up, they're there until you use them. And then once you use them, you have to wait so long before you can use them again. But here are the ideas I had for the different interactions. So asking to be called up. So if you're in the minors, asking to get called up. Asking for more playing time, asking for position change, asking for a lineup change, asking for a batting order change. So maybe you want to bat higher or lower in the batting order. Asking for a bullpen or pitching rotation change. So maybe you're a long reliever in the bullpen, you want to be a main reliever or a setup guy. You can ask for that sort of change. Asking for the team to trade you, asking the team to trade a different player that's on your team, asking for the team to trade for someone that's on another team because you want them to come play with you, asking for them to sign someone in free agency. So, a little bit of recruiting in free agency. I think that would be fun. Retiring, negotiating a buyout. So you want to be bought out of your contract, go to a different team. Asking to have your coach fired, maybe, if you don't get along with your coach. And for all of these, the higher your reputation is, the more likely it is that your request will be accepted. But there is always the chance that your request will be denied. And for each of these, I would have, some sort of cutscene with dialogue options made up for them. And this is stuff that, like I said, NBA 2K12, 2K13, 2K14 had back on the PS3. You could go ask, you could go tell the GM, hey, it's him or me. You got to trade him or me. Or, hey, I want more playing time, and I don't think the coach is giving me the right amount of playing time. Stuff like that. You could do all of that back then on those games. So I think that would be something really cool to add. And then finally, the last thing, I would add social media and make that a cool part of Road to the Show. I know Madden, I know NBA 2K have had social media for years. It's time Road to the Show gets it. You could call out other players before a big game. So say, you've got Aaron Judge coming and you're a pitcher. You could call him out and say, hey, I'm going to strike you out. And now you have a goal for your upcoming game against the Yankees. Strike out Aaron Judge. And if you do it, you get so many training points. You get so many followers on social media. You get maybe cash or something like that. You can call out media members. Say someone has said something bad about you. Say, hey, I'm going to prove you wrong. And then you go out and you have a goal. Prove that person wrong. And if you have a really good game, then maybe you gain a bunch of followers on social media. Your reputation goes up. You can make promises for upcoming games or series. Say, hey, I'm playing for the Yankees. We got a 4-game series against the Red Sox coming up. I guarantee we're going to sweep them. And if you sweep them, then boom, reputation, followers, it all goes up. Say I requested for a batting order change, or say I requested my team to go sign a free agent and they denied me. Then I could go to social media and maybe send out a little cryptic tweet, maybe a couple of emojis here or there, or maybe something, cryptic that maybe puts a little pressure on the front office to maybe reconsider my request. But so those are my general ideas for what I would add to the Road to the Show. So we've gone through character creation, we've gone through the story, we've gone through new archetypes, we've gone through a new progression system that's more streamlined and more straightforward for the player. We've gone through how I think they're already well on their way to making the on-field gameplay a little bit more interactive for players. I think maybe adding some more goals that you would be striving for on the field would actually help. And then a lot more off-the-field stuff like sponsorships, interaction, social media, stuff like that, I think would really be good. And I want to be very clear about this. I do not want all of this added in 1 year. I don't think that's possible. MLB The Show, their development time's like 8 months. So that's nowhere near enough time to add in everything that we've talked about here in this video. That's just not reasonable. I'm not saying, you gotta, we hear about crunch all the time in the video game industry, and it's just awful. You hate to see that. And I'm not advocating for that. I'm not saying, gotta put all this in next year or the game's gonna be awful. No, this is the overall vision that I would like to see Road to the Show work towards over the next few years. Maybe add 1 or 2 things here or there. I would start with progression. I think that would be the biggest thing that needs to be fixed right away. And then, then maybe add in, some of the stuff for character creation. Add in, off the field stuff. Add sponsorships 1 year, and then maybe come back the next year with interactions, and then the next year with social media. It's a process. I understand that. And this is just, how I would like to, some ideas I would like to see them begin to work towards. And because I think that they can do it. I think that Road to the Show, like I said in that other video, it can still be the best career mode in the genre. But some serious effort, some serious innovation that we haven't seen before in the space is going to have to go into it in order for it to reclaim that crown. Until then, Road to the Show is going to be what it is now, which is sadly a shell of its former self. And that's sad to see, but I definitely think there's still hope for the future. So that's going to do it for this video, y'all. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave it a like. Also subscribe and let me know, what are your ideas? What do you think needs to get added in order to make Road to the Show the mode that we all want it to be? Let me know down in the comments below. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of our videos. And for all sports gaming news and updates, stay tuned to Sports Gamers Online. I'm Brandon Satterwhite with SGO. Thank you for watching.